All right, guys, I want to start this talk by telling you all a story about Bob and Brenda, a couple who always helped out at my youth ministry program going through high school. So you know how there's some people who, when you see them, you just can't help but smile? That's pretty much Bob and Brenda in a nutshell for me. So a few weeks ago, my buddy and I took them out to lunch at Freddy's. Well, we tried to take them out to lunch. You know when you're trying really hard to be an adult, so you try to do the adult thing and pay for the other adults that you're with, but then they not only turn you down, but also buy you ice cream? That happened to me last. So yeah, Bob did that to us. And that whole lunch was just kind of the experience of being in the presence of someone that has this sort of goodness about them, where anything that they could be doing right, they do. That's how I felt that lunch, and not just because Bob paid. Bob also helped us carry our food. He insisted we try his favorite jalapeno sauce, and he, someone who's traveled to dozens of different countries and multiple continents on a variety of work trips, patiently and eagerly listened for our stories, wanting to hear more. And of course, he held the door for us on the way out. He's a true gentleman in every regard. And it probably sounds like Bob has it all going for him. He's happily married, he's a successful businessman, active in his church. Well, he does have a lot of things going for him, but not everything. Guys, Bob has cancer, everywhere. He was given 3 to 6 months to live 6 months ago. While this cancer certainly attacked his body physically, it has yet to touch his caring, loving spirit. The love that he's committed himself to, both to Brenda, his wife, me and my friend, and everyone he interacts with, is stronger than ever. His love could have drained out as health has, but it hasn't. It's clear that Bob has made a firm decision, a resolution you could say, to love. This commitment to love is a commitment he's clearly kept. Now I'm going to get back to Bob in a little bit, don't worry. But guys, here we are, the last talk. You guys remember the Ice Age, like the last melon? Anyways, 48 hours ago, we're all just innocently sitting in class, maybe enjoying some mediocre Atherton food or an overpriced drink from Starbucks that has no AC. But now we're here, the Sunday of Awakening, day 3. Historically, a lot of good stuff has happened on third days, and I don't think today's been any different. What Kelly and I are hoping to leave you guys with by the end of our talk is a sense of purpose, a now what, so to speak. Because guys, Awakening doesn't start today. It doesn't end today. I do that every time. Awakening doesn't end today. It starts today. So what we want to do is help pave the way for all of us here so that we can make a resolution to live out our faith every day and every moment and have the commitment to stick with it. Because guys, God calls us. He's calling each and every one of us for greatness.
Retreats are interesting, you know. Matt Newborn asked you all on Friday night, why are you here? For many of you, I'm sure it's clear now. I'm sure some of you are on fire for the Lord because retreats can create a light inside, an energy, a God high, if you will. I'm sure some of you are totally aware of God's presence and how he's working in your heart. I know in retreats there can be this pressure to get to that mountaintop throughout the weekend, and sometimes you just don't get there. So some of you might still not know why you're here, and that's okay. Like Matt mentioned in his talk, you can't compare relationships with God, just like you can't compare experiences from this weekend, which can be difficult. I lived in an intentional community over the summer where we prayed and had conversations about our walks with Christ on a daily basis. At first, I felt so behind in my faith compared to those I was living with. My theological understanding just wasn't as deep. I hadn't experienced some intense conversion. I just didn't feel worthy of working alongside them. I expressed this insecurity with one of my community members, and they shared with me 2 Corinthians 8:15. The one who had much did not have too much, and the one who had little did not have too little. We are all on our own journeys. For those of you who felt affirmed this weekend in your walk, you can still grow more. For those of you who might feel like I did this summer, you don't have less. You said yes this weekend. You said, yes, Lord, I want to grow in my relationship with you. I desire a life centered on you. Yes, Lord, I'm open to you working in my life. God is doing his own thing in each of us. At my awakening as a retreatant, I had a great time, but I didn't quite understand what God was trying to speak to me from the weekend. It wasn't until I reflected on the talks and experiences that I started to understand what God was moving in my heart. And let me tell you, I did a lot of reflecting. I encourage you to do the same. Take some time to reflect on what you experienced this weekend. God is probably trying to tell you something that might not be obvious now.
So, this past January, when through some series of horrible miscommunications, Kelly and I became co-presidents of the BCC, even though I was about to leave for South America for 4 months. I was like, hey, you know what would be better than spending my last weekend in the United States with my family? Spending it with a bunch of strangers in an elementary school. So I did. I signed up for IU's Awakening, HA6 at the time, and I convinced Kelly to do so too. Now this wouldn't have happened without some really encouraging friends at IU. So shout out to McLean and Ariana, who invited me, I think, 3 semesters straight before I could finally go.
So we signed up for HA6. On the drive there, we had prepared ourselves for cheesy icebreakers. But upon arrival, we found something different. Something that jumped into conversations that really matter. As I went through the first day and a half, it felt very similar to other retreats, just without the silly games. The retreat was what I had been seeking, putting a name to the deeper community I was craving, a community that, even though they didn't know me, had been praying for me months before, and so much more.
So we went on HA6, and it was incredible. It was so good. But it was that kind of goodness that demanded action, you know? So that next week, I think Kelly and I met 3 or 4 times, and our wheels were spinning with one goal in mind, bringing Awakening to Butler.
Leaving HA6 and I remember leaving HA6 and praying for BA1, praying that God would work in this way at Butler, praying that he would make his presence known to you. But it was no walk in the park to plan this retreat. Satan tried seeping into our plans, creating obstacles along the way. But God's desire for this retreat to happen was way more powerful. He wanted you to be here. He wanted you to create these connections, to hear these talks, to be open to his will for your life. God wants us to seek him. So, why do we share this story with you? Like Matt said earlier, Awakening doesn't end today. It starts today. It's how you respond to what you experience this weekend that will impact your relationship with Christ. I mentioned earlier how I did a lot of reflecting on my experiences from the weekend to figure out what God was trying to speak to me. I want to share one of those reflections with you. Something powerful happened on Saturday night during the Passion skit. When I placed my burden stone around Jesus' neck, it fell. I panicked. I didn't know if I should pick it up or leave it there. My mind went so many different directions, wondering what this was supposed to mean. Before I could react any further, Mary came following behind Jesus and immediately picked up my burden stone. She took it straight to the foot of the cross. You guys, this is exactly what Mary does with our prayers. When we go to her, she takes our prayers straight to Jesus. Once I reflected on that experience, I knew I wanted to grow in my relationship with Mary. I took this experience from my awakening to figure out steps in that relationship. I'm praying that you respond this weekend by reflecting and taking action.
My response to Awakening this past winter, the one that I went on as a retreat, has been similar to how I've tried to respond to the love I felt from the BCC during my time here at Butler, but taking that love and giving it back out, because the more love we give, the more we have. The BCC has been a home for me at Butler, and it's surrounded me with people who inspire and push me in my faith. And I've tried, and I'm going to keep trying, to bring people into the same community that welcomed me here 3 years ago. So, after Awakening this past February, I've been working with a group to actually make it happen, and it's been awesome to see it unfold this weekend. I think regardless of what you guys resolve to do after this retreat weekend, regardless of what your commitment is, make it something tangible. We're not suggesting that the go-to resolution after Awakening is to start a new Awakening somewhere else. I mean, feel free to do it, but the key is getting involved. Guys, go to men's group. Ladies, women's group. Both of you guys go to Bible study. In a month or so, we're going to have something called Fourth Day, which is a time for all of us in this Awakening community to come back together again, share in each other's company, and eat some good food. The thing is, we've got to take this excitement, this fire that many of us are feeling right now, and keep it going.
During the prayer talk at HA6, Matt Weininger asked us, how are you sustaining your relationship with God? This question hit me hard. At the retreat, I had a few answers to that question, but it has grown ever since. I want to share with you some of the commitments I have made to make my relationship with Christ sustainable. I don't share these things with you to make it seem like I have it all figured out, because I don't at all. I want to share these commitments with you because I want you to know that even as a busy college student, we can find ways to prioritize the Lord in our daily lives. Like how all of you committed to being here this weekend, my biggest commitment is seeking out the Lord. How have I done that? Well, I said yes to attending Hoosier Awakening, and I'm going to Seek in January. I took a chance and lived at a Benedictine monastery this summer with other college interns. It has become so meaningful to me to surround myself with people who also want to be active members of the Imbach, journeying to heaven. At Butler, I find these community pieces through women's group and Bible study. More importantly, I know my relationship is sustainable because I have a commitment to the Eucharist, the source and summit of our lives. My friends, like we were reminded of during Jackie's Eucharist talk, it is so important to be at Mass on Sundays to receive his body and blood. Do I fail at my commitments? Oh, all the time. God's mercy is greater, though. I'm honest with myself regarding my relationship with Christ, recognizing areas of growth, but also appreciating how far I've come. We do not have to be perfect in our walk. It's the striving, it's the process that is making us holy. So I ask you, what foundation are you setting down in your relationship with Christ that will make it last?
Like I mentioned earlier, finding something tangible to do is key. Bring back Bob for a minute, who I opened the talk with. He always used to give us a prayer talk in high school, and about how to pray you needed two things, a time and a place. Why do we go to class? We go to class because we have a time to go and a place to meet. And it's the same thing with God, finding time, even starting with